When I asked this morning how many of you know about the limbic brain, quite a few hands went up. Who can tell me the parts of the limbic brain? Which organs form part of the limbic brain? The amygdala is one. Good. So, what does the hippocampus do? So that's the amygdala, kind of filters things. The hippocampus is to do with memory. So people with Alzheimer's that are unable to form new memories, they can't really remember, the hippocampus is kind of given way or doesn't function as optimally as it could. And then they're unable actually to form new memories. That's what the hippocampus does. So the amygdala. And what's another one? Yeah, the hypothalamus. Good. Who knows what the job of the amygdala is? That's the one, exactly. That's the one that categorizes everything that happens to you, millions and millions of bits of information that come your way every day. So right now, even though I'm looking at Lauren, I can see that door, and I can actually see all of you, and I can see the crew at the back. There's nothing that seems to require my attention right now. But if I noticed that Monique is going to starts crying or starts coughing uncontrollably, then that information would become more important than looking at Lauren, and I will by default look at Monique. Does that make sense? When there's a loud noise behind you or an irritating boat, right? You spontaneously, not I mean just make this stuff up, then you will spontaneously be drawn to that loud bang or somebody shouts your name. So the amygdala, what it does is it filters all information in a nanosecond. Very important to realize and remember, this happens unconsciously. It happens what? Which means, what does that even mean, that it happens unconsciously? You're not even consciously aware of it. And what about controlling it? Good luck with that one. Let me know how it goes. Unless you're on some serious drugs or medication, there ain't no controlling the amygdala. A psychologist told me that somebody had the amygdala removed and was unable to feel fear or anger. None of it. I didn't ask if they could feel joy. I don't know about that. Because the amygdala will filter the information and categorizes it. If this is a threat to you or not a threat to you. If it is a threat, it kicks off fight, flight, or freeze, which we'll cover in a bit more detail. If the information is neutral or positive, it goes, yeah, cool. That can go through. It's okay for you to smile. It's okay for you to have a good time. It's okay for you just to not notice the information if it's neutral. And here's how that system works. Does anybody know about databases, kind of how databases work? Okay, here's how it works. This is what the amygdala does. Every single thing that happens to you gets logged in the limbic brain. But not just the event. What do you think else gets stored about the event? Your emotional response to that particular event. So, for example, when you were a little girl and dad yelled at you, what emotion might you have felt at the time? Fear is one. What else might you have felt? Shock. Absolutely, right? Could be a whole mix. And also, I know you know this, for one little girl, it might be different to another little girl. We have different emotional responses to the same particular event. Somebody might tell a joke, and half of you think it's funny, and half of you think, well, what was that about? Same stimulus, different response. Sadness or shame. Give me another event, positive, so-called positive or negative. Anything that can happen to a child. Car accident. Emotional response. Shock. Anything else? Say again. Fear. Another event, positive or negative. So that'll be the emotion. What'll be the event? That's okay. Hey? Okay, cool. Wee your pants at school. Feeling? Shame, typically, right? And let's find a so-called positive event. Birthday cake. The one of Superwoman, or what's that? Well, not Bambi. What's Ken's girlfriend's name? Barbie, thank you, yeah. So what might be the emotional response to the birthday cake you wanted? Joy, right? Cool. Ah. All right. Now, 30 years later, you work in an office and you work for a manager, a man who tends to raise his voice when he becomes impatient. This is the information that comes your way. The amygdala runs down and goes, let me see if there's anything similar that ever happened. Oh, guess what? Dad yelled when we were 4. We felt fear, sadness, shock, and shame. Let me warn you, something really bad is going to happen to you right now when that man keeps yelling. And will do whatever he can to get your attention that this is about to happen. And then, depending on whether this is, again, I say so-called positive or negative, because I don't believe in positive feelings and negative feelings. I believe in feelings. There are emotions. The one is as valid as the other. Some hurt more than others, but they're all emotions. They're all information about something that is happening. And when the amygdala finds a similar matching event and recognizes last time this really hurt, what does the amygdala do next? Initiates a what response? It can initiate the same response, or it can initiate a fear response, so that you want to avoid this particular feeling. And here's how that works. Here's where the hypothalamus comes in. The hypothalamus is like the body's internal chemist. It gets its instructions from the amygdala. And this is an oversimplified explanation, so neuroscientists would probably say, what? But we don't have 7 hours, or nor do I have the knowledge to do more than this, and this is a good model to understand it in lay person's language, politically correct. The amygdala says, hey, this doesn't look good. Last time what happened, I was embarrassed, ashamed, shocked, and sad. Better warn this person, they're in danger. So the amygdala instructs the hypothalamus to mix the chemicals in your system so that it produces the feeling of fear or shame or sadness based on what happened before. So this is like an internal chemist. The next thing you know, the boss raises his voice at somebody else and you start having a panic attack in the corner. Why? Because the amygdala wants you to know you're in danger. Not that you actually are, because this we're going to see how you overwrite this, and some of you already know that. But this doesn't change with age. It always stays there until it gets neutralized or overwritten. So people then with a fear of public speaking, that's why I said it probably has nothing to do with what you think it has to do with. You will find out today which event, or most of you will find out today which event it was that produced a feeling so intense and so painful that when you even think of public speaking, some of you start freaking out. And then we're going to neutralize it or overwrite that particular event. If an event comes along and there's a birthday of some sorts, the amygdala goes, oh, that's cool. And then you accept the invitation to go to the birthday party and you have a really good time about it. This model makes sense. Everything gets locked, not just childhood stuff. Typically most of I'll say the deeper stuff gets embedded between the age of 0 and 7. If you want to know more, so I just want to speak briefly about this. There's a man by the name of Robert Scare. You can find one of his videos, maybe more, I don't know. On YouTube, it's part of the mandatory curriculum for the Matrix Reimprinting course. And he explains so beautifully why some people after an accident have whiplash. And they can't seem to get rid of it. So they go for treatment after treatment and nothing shifts. or then it eventually shifts, and the next time they get into a car, back's the whiplash. It's the body's way of trying to say this car is dangerous when they haven't released the trauma of the car accident. Or they start, passengers that when you drive, they're like really nervous, stuff like that. It's all limbic brain, and it all is related to, it doesn't have to be a car accident, it could be anything that is vaguely similar to something that happened before. This stuff is so subtle because we have more than one sense. We have 5 senses at least, five senses at least that we know of. And one of them is smell. So you might walk past somebody that's wearing the perfume of a teacher that used to belittle you, and the next thing you have no idea why, you just feel sad or depressed or a little bit off or edgy or anything like that. That's how subtle it is. And sometimes we can figure out what the event is, and very often we just don't. Even with something like EFT, we don't really need to know the event. Sometimes the tapping itself helps to neutralize or override that. You got about a minute. Turn to somebody behind you this time. There'll be one group of 3 and discuss. Limbic brain, hypothalamus, amygdala.